Before you drive the stretch of Route 80 through Ambler, Pennsylvania, you should know one thing. The road remembers every soul it's taken. Listen. You can hear it in the silence between your tires and the asphalt, a second heartbeat, wet and ragged, breathing just behind your ear. They say a man still walks that highway, arm raised, waiting. And once you've seen him, he never stops waiting for you. So ask yourself, when the engine dies and the dark leans in, will you run fast enough? My name is Daniel Cross. I don't drive at night anymore. Not if I can help it. If I absolutely must, I check my rearview mirror every 3 seconds. I keep my doors locked from the inside. I never, ever stop for anyone. This is why. In the summer of 2017, I was living in Scranton, Pennsylvania. My wife Maria, our 2 kids. I'd been driving for Uber since 2015, after the warehouse I'd worked at for 11 years closed without warning. No severance. No goodbye. Just a padlocked gate and a form letter. Maria understood. She always understood. She held down the fort while I drove 12, 14, 16 hours a day, trying to keep the mortgage from drowning us. By 2017, the market was saturated. Every other car on the road had a rideshare sticker in the window. Commissions climbing, fares shrinking. I'd spent every penny I had on a 2015 Toyota Corolla, signed the papers with shaking hands, believing it was my ticket to something better. 2 years later, I was still barely keeping my head above water. So I started taking private bookings, cash jobs, fares that never touched the app. That's how I met the Dillon family. They were regulars. Gurpreet, Navdeep, and their son Arjun, 12 years old, with his mother's serious eyes. They'd hired me 3 or 4 times to drive from Scranton to State College to visit relatives. Always the same route. Always paid in cash. Always tipped fair. On the 3rd Saturday of May 2017, I picked them up at 1 in the afternoon. Gurpreet met me at the door with a smile and a cup of tea. "Dan, come in," he said. "My wife is just finishing packing. Sit, have tea." No rush. I sat in their tidy living room, surrounded by family photos and the smell of spices, cumin, cardamom, something I couldn't name but would never forget, and I drank the best cup of chai I've ever had. Navdeep bustled around with Arjun, making sure they hadn't forgotten anything. The boys sat quietly on the couch, reading a comic book. The Walking Dead, I remember. Strange what sticks with you. We left at 1:30. The drive to State College usually takes about 3 hours, but Gurpreet asked me to take the scenic route, said he wanted to show his son the mountains. I didn't mind. The day was warm, the sky was clear, and the extra miles meant extra cash. We stopped for gas just outside Scranton. I filled the tank and checked my oil, habit, from years of driving beater cars that couldn't afford to break down. Gurpreet got out to smoke a cigarette by the side of the road. Navdeep and Arjun stayed in the car. Through the window, I could see her showing him something on her phone, both of them laughing. When we got back on the road, Gurpreet seemed different. Quieter. He stared out the window at the passing hills, and when he spoke, his voice had a weight to it that hadn't been there before. "You know," he said, "there's a stretch of road up ahead around Ambler that people talk about." I glanced at him in the rear view. "Talk about how? Strange things," he said. "Accidents. Disappearances. My cousin lives out that way. He told me never to drive it after dark." I laughed, nervous, dismissive. "Come on, man. It's 2017. We're not in the dark ages." Gurpreet didn't laugh with me. He just looked at me with those serious eyes, and for a moment he looked exactly like his son. "You'd be surprised," he said. "Some places." The dark ages never really ended. He changed the subject after that. Didn't want to scare his wife, I figured. But I couldn't shake the feeling that he'd been about to say something else. Something he'd thought better of. I wish he'd said it. We reached State College at 7:30 that evening. I helped them unload their bags from the trunk, 3 suitcases, a backpack for Arjun, a cooler of food Navdeep had packed for the relatives. Gurpreet paid me $220 cash. He held the bills out, and when I took them, he didn't let go right away. "Dan," he said, "stay here tonight. Get a room. Drive back in the morning when the sun's up." I shook my head. "Can't. Got a fare tomorrow morning back in Scranton." "I'll be fine. I've driven this route 100 times. He pressed his lips together. "Not at night, you haven't. Not through Ambler. Please, Dan. Listen to me." But I was stubborn. Tired. Broke. The thought of paying for a hotel room when I had a perfectly good car and a full tank of gas, it felt like throwing money away. Money Maria needed. Money the mortgage demanded. "I'll be fine," I said again. "Don't worry about me." Gurpreet looked at me for a long moment. Longer than felt comfortable. Then he nodded, slow and reluctant. "All right," he said. "But Dan, if you see anyone on the road tonight, don't stop. No matter what they look like. No matter how much they seem to need help. You drive past. You keep driving. You understand?" I laughed it off. Shook his hand. Got back in my car and pulled away, watching him in my rearview mirror, standing in the glow of his sister's porch light, still watching me go. I should have listened. The drive back was quiet. I-80 was mostly empty, just the occasional trucker hauling freight through the night. I drove slow, hoping to pick up a fare on the way. Maybe someone heading east, needing a ride. A few extra dollars in my pocket. I stopped at a rest area around 11:45 to buy coffee and splash water on my face. The bathroom was empty, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the floor slick with that peculiar dampness that never quite dries in public restrooms. I stood at the sink and looked at myself in the mirror. Dark circles under my eyes. A face that had aged 10 years in the last 2. Maria said I looked tired. She was right. I drove on. At 12:15 a.m., I crossed into Ambler County. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the ordinary quiet of a rural highway at night. This was something else. Something absolute. The crickets had stopped singing. The wind had died. Even the hum of my engine seemed muffled, like the sound was being absorbed by something just beyond the reach of my headlights. I drove through the town of Ambler itself, if you could call it a town. A few dark storefronts. A gas station with its lights off. A church with a steeple that seemed to lean against the stars like a tired man against a wall. No cars on the road. No lights in the windows. It felt watched. I thought about what Gurpreet had said. Don't stop. No matter what. I kept driving. About a mile outside town, something hit the roof of my car. I slammed on the brakes. My heart slammed against my ribs. Whatever it was slid off the roof and landed on the road in front of me, a heavy, wet thump that I felt through the floorboards. I sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. Then I opened the door and got out. It was a deer. A big doe, lying in the middle of the road, her legs twisted at angles that made my stomach turn. But it wasn't the fall that had killed her. Her head was crushed, like something had struck her with enormous force, right between the eyes. The skull was caved in, not broken, caved, as if a giant fist had come down from the sky. And there was something else, something I couldn't process at first. Her antlers, but Diz don't have antlers. I know that. Everyone knows that. So what was I looking at? What were those things protruding from her shattered skull, splintered like bone but wrong, all wrong, angled in ways that made my brain recoil? I stumbled backward, gagging, bent over at the side of the road, and vomited into the gravel. When I straightened up, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand, I saw the man. He was standing about 50 yards ahead, at the edge of my headlight beam. Just standing there, in the middle of the road, one arm raised like he was hailing a cab. My first instinct was to get back in the car and drive. Every nerve in my body was screaming at me to do exactly that. But I'd been looking for a fare all night. I was broke. And the man was just standing there, not moving, not threatening, just waiting. I got back in the car and pulled forward slowly, stopping a few feet away from him. Rolled down the window. He walked toward me. His clothes were strange, loose-fitting, pale, like hospital scrubs or maybe religious robes. They hung on him wrong. Not like fabric hangs on a body. Like fabric hung on something wearing a body. I couldn't see his face clearly. It was in shadow, the collar of his shirt pulled up high. But I could see his hand. The one raised in the air. The fingers were too long. Not deformed, just longer than they should be. And the nails were dark. Not dirty. Dark. Like they'd been soaked in something that never washed out. "Scranton," he said. His voice was flat. Wrong. Like someone trying to remember how human speech worked. Like someone who'd heard words before, but never understood what they were for. "Yeah," I said. "I'm headed to Scranton." "You need a ride?" He didn't answer. Just walked around to the passenger side and opened the back door. "Hey," I said, "you can sit up front if you want." He didn't respond. Just climbed into the back seat and closed the door. I looked at him in the rear view. He was sitting directly behind me, his head turned toward the window, his face still hidden. "Okay," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Scranton. That's gonna be about 2:20, he nodded. "Once. Slow." I pulled back onto the road. The next few minutes were the strangest of my life. The road stretched out ahead, empty and dark. My headlights cut a narrow tunnel through the night, and beyond that tunnel there was nothing, just the absolute black of rural Pennsylvania. No stars. No distant farmhouse lights. No moon. Nothing. I tried to make conversation. Asked him where he was coming from. What he did for a living. If he had family in Scranton. He didn't answer. Just sat there perfectly still, staring out the window at the dark. And then I heard it. Breathing. Not mine. Behind me. Soft. Wet. Ragged. In. Out. In. Out. The rhythm was wrong. The pauses between breaths were too long. Like someone who'd forgotten how to breathe and was trying to remember. Like someone who'd stopped breathing once for a very long time and was relearning the mechanics. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Told myself it was nothing. Told myself he was just a strange man with a cold, with congestion, with something that explained the wet, rattling sound filling my car. And then I felt it. The car was slowing down. Not because I was taking my foot off the gas. I wasn't. I had the pedal pressed to the floor, and the speedometer was dropping. 55. 50. 45. The engine was straining, whining like it was pulling a trailer up a mountain, but the road was flat. Completely flat. What the hell, I muttered. I glanced at the temperature gauge. It was climbing. Fast. The needle was pushing into the red, and I could smell something. Hot metal, burning oil, and underneath it something else. Something sweet and rotten, like meat left too long in the sun. Like something that had been left too long everywhere. The car died. Just stopped. Right there in the middle of the highway. The headlights went dark. The dashboard went dark. The engine gave one final cough, and then nothing. Silence. Absolute crushing silence. I sat there in the dark, my hands frozen on the wheel, my heart beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. The only sound was my own breathing. And behind me, the breathing continued. In. Out. In. Out. I turned around. The back seat was empty, but the door was open. The passenger side rear door, standing wide open, letting in the cold night air. And on the seat where the man had been sitting, there was a dark stain. Wet. Spreading. Too dark to be water. Too thick. I scrambled out of the car so fast I fell, hit the pavement hard, felt something tear in my knee. I didn't care. I was on my feet and running down that dark highway, running toward anything. A light, a house, a something. Behind me, I heard it. Footsteps. Not running. Walking. Steady, unhurried, the crunch of gravel under boots. And breathing. That same wet, ragged breathing, closer now, so close I could feel it on the back of my neck. I ran harder. My lungs were burning, my knee was screaming, but I ran. I ran until I saw it, a light up ahead off to the side of the road. A small building with a cross on top. A church. A mission. Something holy. I ran toward it, screaming. They found me at the door. 3 men. No, 2 men and a woman, all of them in plain clothes, all of them with the same tired, knowing look in their eyes. They pulled me inside, sat me down, gave me water. I couldn't stop shaking. Couldn't stop babbling about the man, the empty car, the thing that had been in my back seat. One of the men, his name was Father Tomas, he told me later, listened without interrupting. When I finally ran out of words, he looked at the others, and something passed between them. A silent conversation. A shared understanding. "Stay here tonight," Father Tomas said. "We'll talk in the morning." I didn't argue. They gave me a small room. A cell, really, with a narrow bed and a crucifix on the wall and a single window that looked out onto the dark. I lay there for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening for footsteps that never came. In the morning, Father Tomas took me back to my car. It was exactly where I'd left it. The doors were closed. The engine started on the first try. The temperature gauge was normal. No smell. No stain on the back seat. But when I looked closer, I saw it. On the passenger side rear door, just above the handle, there was a mark. A handprint. Burned into the paint like a brand. 5 fingers, a palm, and something else. Something that looked like it might have been a face pressed against the glass from the inside, screaming. Father Tomas crossed himself. "You're lucky to be alive," he said. And then he told me the story. In the winter of 2012, a man named Silas Voss was walking along this highway. He was a patient at a state psychiatric hospital 30 miles south, had been for years. Schizophrenia, the record said, with violent episodes. But the hospital had been overcrowded, underfunded, and one night in December, Silas Voss had simply walked away. He was trying to get home. Trying to get back to Scranton, where his mother lived, where he'd been born, where he'd been before the voices started. He walked for 2 days through the snow, and when he reached this stretch of highway, he was half dead from exposure. Delirious. Desperate. A truck came. Silas Voss stepped into the road, waving his arms, begging for help. But the truck was going too fast, or the driver wasn't paying attention, or maybe the driver saw him and just didn't stop. The truck hit him at 60 miles an hour. They say his body was scattered across 300 yards of highway. They say his head was found in a ditch a quarter-mile away, his eyes still open, his mouth still frozen in the shape of a word no one could hear. The driver never stopped, never even slowed down. And ever since that night, Silas Voss has been walking this road. He stands in the dark, his arm raised, waiting for someone to stop. And if you do, if you're foolish enough, or desperate enough, or kind enough to pull over for a stranger on a lonely road, he gets in your car. He sits behind you, where you can't see his face. And then, I asked Father Tomas, then what? He looked at me with those tired, knowing eyes. He finishes what the truck started, he said. He shows you what it felt like. The impact. The flight. The fall. And when it's over, he leaves you by the side of the road and he waits for the next car. I thought about the deer. The crushed skull. The impossible force. I thought about the handprint on my door. The face pressed against the glass. Why didn't he kill me? I whispered. Father Tomas shook his head. I don't know, he said. Maybe because you ran. Maybe because you didn't look back. Maybe because you made it to holy ground before he could finish. He looked at me, and something in his eyes made my blood run cold. Or maybe, he said, he's not done with you yet. I drove home that morning. I didn't stop. Not once. Not for gas, not for food, not for anything. I drove straight through to Scranton, and when I got there, I parked the car in my driveway, and I went inside and I held my wife and I cried. I haven't driven at night since. I sold the car 6 months later. Told the buyer it had been in a minor accident. He didn't ask questions. Didn't notice the handprint. I'd had it repainted, but the mark came back every time, bleeding through the paint like a wound that wouldn't heal. I don't know what that thing wanted from me. I don't know why it let me go. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and Maria is asleep beside me, I hear it. Breathing. Wet. Ragged. Close. And I know that Silas Voss is still walking that highway. Still standing in the dark with his arm raised. Still waiting for someone to stop. Waiting for me to come back. But the story does not end at my new doorstep. Last week, I received a letter. No return address. Postmarked from Ambler, Pennsylvania. Inside was a single photograph. It showed my car, the one I'd sold, the one I'd tried to forget, parked on that same stretch of highway at night. The handprint was visible on the door, glowing faintly in the dark, like it was lit from within. And standing next to the car, one hand raised in that familiar, terrible gesture of asking for help, was a figure that looked exactly like me. The same face, the same clothes, the same tired eyes I see every morning in the mirror, the same scream frozen on its lips. The scream was silent because in that photograph, frozen on that empty highway, he was already dead. And he was waiting. This is the story of the Ambler Highway, Pennsylvania. It is not a ghost story. It is a vigil. The most profound evil does not lurk in shadows or hide under beds. It stands in plain sight on an empty road, arm raised, asking for the one thing you can't give: your trust, your compassion, your life. It wears the face of the desperate, the lost, the forgotten, and it waits. So listen closely, family. If you ever find yourself driving a lonely road at night and you see a figure in the distance, arm raised, asking for help, do not stop. Do not roll down your window. Do not look back. Drive. Drive, and don't stop driving until you see the sun. Because some wounds never heal. Some deaths never end. And some hitchhikers aren't looking for a ride home. They're looking for company. If you have a story that haunts you, send it to contacts.thedreadcodex@gmail.com. Your truth becomes our tale. Your likes and comments keep these stories alive. Until next time, may your path be lit. May your faith be your own. Good night.